brother and I went out there 2 nights, and it's kind of waited for. So we got.
People get like, I hope they remember you, John. He's one of the 2,000 couple cars.
Oh, really?
But he says it was my own fault. You know, but it's kind of scary.
They also have a
Yeah, I think I'm assuming that's where we get to.
I should have thrown my hair. Done it now. I didn't have one. You know, I remember coming home that night and seeing one and just going over the sun. And ours has been gone for so many years. Everything. This year's like that. Big chunks of tar. And I left everything there.
Well, I think it's your neighbor. They don't walk a lot.
Mr. Chairman, calling Mr. Chairman,
I met them. They were.
Chairman Fisher.
And that's what they did.
And like I said, and I'm not taking
Some of it. When they get close.
He said he would. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Waukesha Town Board meeting, April 28th, 2016, beginning at 7:20. I'd like to call the meeting to order and begin with the roll call, Madam Clerk.
Supervisor Durr,
Here.
Supervisor Fisher,
Here.
Chairman Merrick,
Present.
Supervisor Radke,
Here.
Supervisor Wolf.
Here. And Madam Clerk, could you call the roll? Have you met all the requirements of the open meetings law?
Yes, we have.
And before we begin with citizens' comments, the governor of the state of Wisconsin has put out a proclamation that I'd like to read. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world as the oldest profession among public servants. Whereas the municipal clerk provides the professional connections between the citizens, the governing bodies, and agencies at the local, county, and state levels. And whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all residents through transparency and accountable government practices. And whereas the municipal clerk possesses and distributes all agendas, actions of the governing body, serves as the official record keeper for the municipality, issues licenses and permits, facilitates the annual board of review on municipal redistricting projects, attends various meetings of the municipality, and serves as the resource center on functions of the local government and community. And whereas the 1,853 municipal clerks and 72 county clerks contribute to election administration by attending required training, dedicating themselves to providing fair, non-biased, nonpartisan, and accurate elections in Wisconsin. And whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the responsibilities of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, focus groups, and annual conferences across Wisconsin. Now therefore, I, Scott Walker, Governor of the State of Wisconsin, do by here proclaim May 1 through 7th, 2016 as Municipal Clerks Appreciation Week throughout the state of Wisconsin, and I commend this observance to all of our citizens. So we thank you, Clerk Nicholas. Good question. Now we can open up to citizens' comments.
Hi,
Evening.
I'm Lori Murphy, and I live at W257 South 5017 Wood Lily Lane. I live on a corner lot, and this winter being very mild, I had an extreme lot of damage to my property from the snowplow. And I've lived there 24 years, and it just surprised me that why this year, when I've never had problems before, that my yard got so torn up. And I called in, it was the Saturday before Thanksgiving week, and I didn't notice it because the snow was there, but I was turning out of my driveway on Thanksgiving, and I see this whole pile of grass, sod pieces in my yard. So I did call the town, and she didn't know if somebody could come out and fix it, and they did. But the snowfall of December 28th, because they let us out of work early that day, I had my corner, the plow just came extremely close to the stop sign and just completely dug in to the yard, causing a lot of damage. And I didn't know, I guess my feelings are, when that happens, it would be nice to be let known. I know I was told something happened to the blade or something, that I wasn't told that until I came in a couple weeks ago, and I felt like a pest. And then I had to resort to sending an email and carbon copying all you. And I don't like to do that, but I just feel like, you know, this is our property. We work hard to keep it up, and one snowfall can wreck it, and the time it takes to get it back looking good. And I'm planning on selling my property. I just felt it wasn't, I would have liked it to be handled.
But it is repaired.
They did repair it. Hopefully the grass grows back. There was another section where the sod was cut. I'm a corner lot, so that area was cut in, and then that other side, a lot of gravel and stuff was put in, and I did that myself. I was glad the main part that was damaged, and Jim stopped by, so he saw it was a long patch of grass. And thank you for stopping by and looking at it. I appreciate that. But I will need some tailings or something to fill in And I guess if that is a concern that we have, are we responsible for putting up orange sticks in the fall? We've never had to in the past, but I don't understand why all of a sudden it was an issue this year.
Very simple answer to your question, because the frost wasn't in the ground before that first snowfall. If the frost is not in the ground, the blades just grab the sod and take it with it.
Okay.
That's why.
So is someone going to come by and replace some of the gravel that was,
Did you call the town hall and let them know that there were some additional repairs that need to be done?
well, it's obvious that the blade took it down to the dirt. I know tomorrow is the deadline. I didn't know. It's just common sense that there needs to be some tailings.
Lori, I can, I was aware of your problem because we talked back
Right.
and forth many times. I did send it to Wolf many times. The last time I heard, they went out there, they put in
The grass
topsoil
seed, yeah.
and seeded for you, but
Are they in charge of the gravel also, or is the town in charge of that?
I don't know anything about gravel, so
Like
I don't know how they
tailings.
normally do it.
Well, typically the gravel for along the side of the road is taken care of by the DPW.
Okay,
And so if that's a concern in that one area, Kathy will make sure that do it in, they'll do it for a week straight. And that may not get done for perhaps into July.
that's fine, just so
but
it's done.
It'll be on their list and they'll make sure that they get to it.
How about, are we responsible for staking our properties?
Typically, no. What the DPW will often do is they will go out in known problem areas. I live on a cul-de-sac that has a grass island, and on those first snowfalls before there's snowbanks, it's really hard to see
Right,
where grass starts because it's all at the same grade. So they typically stake that every year, even before I was a supervisor. If this turns out to be an ongoing problem, they will stake that in the future, and we can make sure Jerry keeps notes on that.
okay.
We'll have them come out and stake it next year.
Now, are we supposed to keep, over the years, the grass has grown into that gravel. Are we supposed to try to keep that? I've tried to spray that to keep the grass and
I
stuff
don't know that
out.
there's a formal requirement one way or the other.
Okay,
We have that problem everywhere. And typically the right of way, which is town responsibility.
right.
So if you have problems in the right of way, you should always contact the clerk and she'll get the DPW out there to look at it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And you're not a pest by any means.
Thank you. Anybody else for citizens' comments?
Hi, I'm Greg Lindberg, and I live next to L'Oreal, West 257, South 5207 Wood Lily Lane, and I'm here for the same issue. Through the years, we lived there almost 24 years. You kind of have to understand that you're going to have some damage in the winter. We've put up with a lot too. We've had our mailbox taken out. We came home one night and the snowplow was stuck in our front yard. But this year, in the last couple of years, it's gone downhill. And, we really need to bring this to your attention. Not only the grass and now in front of our house, it's gotten to the point that the ditch is kind of eroding. And this year they took up a lot of the asphalt. And I left the asphalt there in the road. I took the big chunks out of my yard, but we've got about a 10-foot long by about 6-foot deep section of asphalt that is just crumbling. The plow hit it and just crumbled it. And when they built the subdivision, we had an initial layer, and probably about 2 years later, after so many homes were built, they put another layer over the top. Well, they took out that top layer, and when I looked at it the other day, the bottom layer is also cracked. So what's going to happen now is if we don't get somebody out there to repair it, that's going to start eroding away. So I'd like to see somebody out there before July to, make those asphalt repairs and maybe start to build that ditch back up. Because like I said, through the years, the plow will kind of slowly take parts of that ditch and throw it, or parts of that shoulder and start throwing it in the ditch. And we understand that, so we go and rake it up, throw it away. But through the years, it's just gotten worse and worse, and we're kind of tipped down at an angle now in that area. So, and I'd also like to make the because we live at the end of the cul-de-sac too. And as you come down the hill, you know, we're going down a hill, and the cul-de-sac kind of flares around, and you can see when we
Angie Vansack, South 51, West 25375, Glendale Road. Yeah, staking is a great idea. We've done that ourselves for years, and it helps the snowplow drivers because they can't tell where they're going when it's a blizzard. So it's important. I'd like to comment about well monitoring. I see that it is on the agenda. I didn't see anything in the packet as to what was going to be discussed, but I want to express my disappointment that well monitoring information and Professor Chirkauer's information has all been made public. That is all litigation material potentially. And if the city does not get Lake Michigan water, which, you know, perhaps Mr. Merrick feels as though they're still going to get it, and perhaps they will, but if they don't, the well data is something that you're going to need. And keep in mind, that was not started by, quote, my administration, okay? That was started in the administration before us because they felt it was that important. So I hope at this critical juncture, you know, you are maintaining the well data information and that you'll think about how that would be used and what was the intent for it. It was never intended to be public. It was intended to be held so that we would have an advantage if we wanted to protect people from having well issues if city wells went in. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it if you can't use it for its intended purpose. But you have many years of data which will be helpful to you, but only if you maintain all of the wells and you continue to, you know, try to keep that information so you're not feeding it to the people that you'd want to use it with. Thank you.
Anybody else for citizens' comments? Then we can move on to number 5, approval of the minutes from April 14th, 2016. Is there a motion?
I have 2 corrections. One would be on page 5 of 5, at the very top, I believe, where it says motion Supervisor Fisher moved to award the bid for a 3,500, I think that should be 3,500 gallon tanker to Pierce for $345,876. I believe the correct number is $347,876.
I've already made that correction.
I'd like to have that correction made. And the other one would be on the top of, or near the top of page 3 of 5. The second motion that reads Supervisor Durr moved to approve ordinance 2316-02 to require the town board to complete annual performance reviews, seconded by Supervisor Wolf. Motion carried. To add to that, after motion carried 3-2, Supervisors Radke and Fisher voted nay. And with those suggested corrections, I move to approve the amended minutes of April 14th, 2016.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
On the change to the motion regarding the annual performance reviews, I don't believe that there was a requirement quell, so therefore I don't think it should be reflected in such manner.
Well, if I could respond to that, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
If you look at section 2-3-13, conduct of deliberations of our Town of Waukesha Code of Ordinances, paragraph B says, all ayes and nays shall be recorded in the official minutes. That's that on the table, so I don't think that's our discretion, it's the ordinance. And I actually went to the effort to run a copy of a set of minutes of the meetings of the town boards of the town of Delafield, the town of Genesee, the town of Vernon, and the town of Mukwonago. You can pass those down the table. All of those, when they have votes other than unanimous votes, they do record the ayes and the nays. I think that's essential to do that, to keep a record. It's required by ordinance. No one ought to object to that unless you, for some reason, are ashamed of your vote. So I would encourage you to vote to approve the minutes in the motion that I've made.
I think if it's in the ordinances, I think that's sufficient for me.
I'm never ashamed of my vote. So that has absolutely nothing to do with it. We haven't taken these steps before, and I haven't reviewed that ordinance, and I would want to take time to do that before I.
Well, it's very simple. I pass it down the table. It's comprised of about 6 words, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I haven't read it, and I'm not
Well,
going to take the time and waste the time of all the
Not to
people to
waste
do
any
it now.
time. It says it right there. It says the ayes and nays shall be recorded.
Well, let's do this. We've got a motion and a second. If there's not further discussion on the minutes themselves, let's take a vote on whether or not we're going to approve those minutes.
If you want time to look at it, I'll move to table.
All right, so you want to retract your motion
I just moved to table.
and a second to table?
I'll second that.
And to the next regular meeting?
Absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to number 6. We missed Paul Franz last week for the 2015 audit report. Come on up.
Very good. Thank you for having me this evening. Again, tonight I passed out a 2-page stapled document that highlights the 2 bound documents that you received from us dated March 21st, 2016. In addition, a few weeks after that, I provided Kathy PDF information to put out on the town's website. Tonight, we'll use that handout to summarize the information in those 2 documents. The handout is similar to what we provided last week. I appreciate you accommodating my tight schedule to get here and having me this evening. So with that, we'll start with the handout. Ultimately, the objective of the audit is to come in and express an opinion on the financial statements of the town. We have done so in the financial statement document on pages 1 to 3. You will find our opinion. It's a modified opinion, which means clean bill of health. It's the highest level of assurance that you can receive from your auditors. Okay, and what that unmodified opinion stands for is it means that the financial statement document is consistent with generally accepted accounting principles, that the accounting principles from years prior have been consistently applied, and that all necessary disclosures have been made in that financial statement document. In addition to excuse me, the financial statement document, we provided you a bound communication letter. Within that document, it's a couple different avenues of the information we're communicating. One, we're highlighting material weaknesses that we identified during the corresponding audit work. All material weaknesses are consistent with what we've provided in years past. Material weakness related to the control environment, and what that weakness relates to is the lack of segregation of duties due to the number of individuals that you have involved in the significant transaction cycles of the town. As we've notified you in the past, that is a common material weakness for an entity of your size. So 90 to 95% of the clients that we work with receive this material weakness, and it's required by our auditing standards to be communicated. Material weakness is a very harsh term at face value, but that is the standards that we need to follow and communicate. Now, how would you address that? We've laid out in that letter different areas that you can consider from a control standpoint. But it's not as simple as inserting one or two people into each of the transaction cycles to make that comment go away. Ultimately, there's a cost benefit there, and that's why so many entities have concluded that. So what are ways that you as a board can address that? It's just a higher level of scrutiny, reviewing the financial information that's provided from the office with a high level of scrutiny, asking the questions, things that don't make sense. Nothing that reading through your minutes, I don't believe isn't already happening, but just something to be mindful of. Okay. Second material weakness you'll find in there is related to the control, environmental, or financial reporting. What that material weakness is referring to is the financial statement document that you received from us, that bound financial statement document that you do not have somebody on staff that can materially pull together that data. And so the town has decided to rely on us as your auditors to prepare that document. Therefore, we need to make you aware that that does, under the standards, qualify as a weakness, similar to the control environment, as I mentioned, of other common service that we provide for our clients. 95% also receive this material weakness. Okay. The third and last one relates to the fire donation bank account. And I know there's been some discussion in the town over the last month or two, and there's some movement in handling this activity differently. So I won't spend too much time going into detail on this. But our main concern is that the activity that is running through that account is not part of the general ledger of the town. For the course of the audit, I receive paper documents that provide me ledger detail on the activity. And I go through the process of regurgitating that information into the system in order to prepare the financial statements to reflect the activity in that account. What are the risks by having that outside of the town's typical control environment? Is just that, is that the controls, the procedures and controls that you've put into place are not being necessarily followed in line with what you've asked the office, the central control of your accounting function to handle that. Now, during the course of the audit, there was nothing that came to light that would be a concern. During the course of the audit, we evaluate those significant transaction cycles and the different avenues of risk. And it is our judgment as we evaluate areas of risk in the town that this is something, an area that we further work on, and therefore qualifies it to a material issue to note it. Okay. The remainder of that document, the next section will be labeled a two-way communication. That is us reaching out to you. If there are items as you think ahead to your 2016 audit that you would like us to look at differently, in more depth, kick the tires a little bit differently than we have in the past, this is our attempt reaching out to let you know kind of what our timeline for the audit. So there's some 6 to 8 questions on that page that we ask that you ask yourself, and then our information for contacting is in there. Behind that is a section of other comments and recommendations. I won't go into any detail, but that's on pages 6 to 8. And those are things that as we go through those evaluations of the transaction cycles and identify a best practice, we'll put it in this letter. They could be policy related or procedure related. We'll also highlight any new standards that are coming down the line in that section, and or provide any further guidance as far as new accounting standards that were implemented for the town. So the town is fully up to date under the GASBs through GASB 68 and 71 that were implemented this past year. I will save you the long, lengthy discussion on what that means, because ultimately the implementation of that put a net pension asset and a deferred outflow on your statement of net position. That statement, it falls under a different, a full accrual type of statement. It's not like your general fund or the funds that you're managing your business on. I point you there to read it so you're familiar with it. Ultimately relates to the town's involvement in the Wisconsin retirement system. Pages, 10 through 14 of that document are our required communication that we need to have with you. Ultimately, that just lays out what new accounting principles or GASBs we implemented for the town during the year. If we had any disagreements with management, we list out any material journal entries that we made during the course of the audit. We'll lay out any non-audit services we provided for the town and ultimately declare our independence. Okay. Any questions on that document? Perfect. Then we'll move on to section 3 of my hand, financial information at a high level. So in your general fund, which is the main operating fund of the town, you had about $3.5 million of revenue come in, and a little bit over 3.5 go out as expenditures. You had a change in fund balance of $24,000, a decrease in the general fund of $24,000. So you, at the bottom there, ended with $1,582,000 of general fund balance. Of that fund balance, what is the safety net in the general fund? Okay, that's going to be your unassigned category. So the next line up, that's $1,563,000. Otherwise, that's 54% of your typical or your actual general fund expenditures, true operating expenditures. So that 3.5 number I gave you earlier that said your true, that was the expenditures of the general fund. That's not your operating expenditures. That also pulls in some transfers out to the corresponding fund. So the operation of the general fund was about $2.9 million of operating expenditures. So 54% is sitting in your general fund as of year end. You adopted a fund balance policy during 2014 or 2015 that is now tracking that unassigned category, and you want it in a range of 25 to 40%. So as I've met with, as we reviewed the drafts during the course of the audit, it should be coming to your attention if it already has not, that currently you'll need to make a transfer or decide how you want to handle that in relation to your policy. So you're at 54%. We recommend to our clients that you're somewhere between 10 and 25%. So the town's general fund is in a very healthy position. Next category is the capital project fund. This is the first year of a good amount of activity sitting in that fund. You made a transfer during your 2014 audit to start funding your capital activity in this fund. In 2015, you did not put together a budget for your capital project fund, and therefore you had a lot of transfers in and transfers out. Your general fund for the 2015 audit houses all the capital expenditures. When you put together your 2016 budget, you have now put together a capital project fund budget. So that fund now will house any capital expenditures that you budget for. So there was a 1-year timing difference in getting that budget up and running. And that was a recommendation from Attorney Macy as he reviewed the legal requirements around that. Okay. So as of year end in your capital project fund, you have just under $1 million, so $991,000. The remaining funds there are your non-major funds. That's your Act 102 fund, your debt service fund, and your fire department donation fund account. The latter, that is the fund that I mentioned that is not currently recorded on the ledger that we go through the manual documents and book. Okay. Last thing I'll point out, the debt service fund houses your a portion of the trunk radio infrastructure that you've agreed to pay yearly to Waukesha County. That payment goes through 2022. You're paying $27.57 a year with no interest. So as of year end, what we would consider your general obligation debt was $19,297. The town has the ability to borrow 5% of their equalized value. Put in layman's terms, if you wanted to get crazy, you could borrow up to $46 million. Obviously, that's not been the town's practice. You only have $19,000 out there, but you do have the ability, if need be, to go to general obligation debt up to $26 million. Or I'm sorry, $46 million. Okay. On the next page, I summarize your budget activity in the general fund. Ultimately, when you put together your budget, your revenues and expenditures balanced. During the course of the year, there were some budget amendments that changed that. Ultimately, if you look in the middle column, bottom line, you plan to use $30,000 of fund balance. As I mentioned earlier, you use $24,000. From your plan, you save $6,000, ultimately differing. So it was in favor of what you had planned to use of that fund balance. Okay, we'll go through it at a relatively high level. If you want to see further details on this and kind of see what the original budget was to final, if you go to page 36 of that financial statement document, you'll see a little bit more details along those lines. Okay. And the revenues, you had planned to receive $2,845,000. Ultimately, you brought in just under $3 million. And the two big categories that drove that up were the regulation and compliance. That was up $26,000. Biggest piece of that was you got an additional $20,000 in cable franchise fees during 2015. In addition to the fines, forfeitures, and penalties, court fees were up $16,000. Your expenditures, you had planned to spend $3,367,000. You only spent $2,906,000. And the big pieces that jumped out there, you had some staff changes in the public safety in the fire department, where we had some full-time positions that went to part-time and some positions that were open that led to some savings there. Big savings in salt costs due to the warmer conditions that overlap the two winters that would have been in 2015. Capital outlay, again, this is the line that relates to the capital project fund that I would say in future years would be allocated in the other fund. You spend $442,000 in that category. You had planned to spend $591,000, but what you did buy were radio equipment, an ambulance, a plow, a dump truck, some Lexington equipment that was partially county, and you redid the carpet here at the town hall. Okay. So ultimately, again, I'll point you that there was a $6,000 difference from where you had planned to use between the funds, and ultimately are in very good financial health. So ultimately, that's my highlight on the financial information. Before I turn it over to you to ask any questions that you may have, I'll highlight that you did the accounting office with Kathy and Joan and further support staff did transition during 2015 from QuickBooks to Workhorse. From an audit standpoint, I've been through a number of conversions. We didn't skip a beat in the town office. It was very smooth. The records being tracked in the Workhorse now fall. Workhorse is a governmental software. It's meant to track your governmental funds. So we've taken some major steps to provide you as much information as need be in the proper format. And I just, Kathy and Jonah are a pleasure to work with and are very well prepped before we come on site. We are in and out and very happy to be working with the town. So again, my name is Paul Franz. I'm a senior manager with Baker Tilly and happy to be with you guys. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer them.
Mr. Chair. Okay. Just two quick things. Thank you for all the information, very comprehensive report. And just an informational piece, we did, help me out, about a month ago or something like that, we did from the general fund account, I think you said it was between 1.5 and 1.6 million.
Yep.
Help me out, we transferred what, between $500,000 and $600,000 or thereabouts to bring it down to 40%. I think that's true. So we
512 sticks out in my head as the number I think we had talked about. So that's great. So then you would be in compliance, and each year you'll have to do that. So if we get over the 40%, that's something that we'll notify you that is coming down the line. If it's already being handled, then I won't bring it to your attention. I will glad it's handled. So thank you.
A quick question. In your audit, within your numbers, you reflect the budget with budget amendments in. Is that the proper way to do it, so that we're looking at a forecast of actual time, what really happened within town, rather than what the budget was, but rather what really happened? Is that how you normally would do it?
Are you talking about the handout that I passed out tonight, or within the financial statement document? Both. So within the financial statement document, we give you a picture of where you started, what you adjusted your plan to, and where you ended up. That's on page 36, as I mentioned. Tonight, I summarized where you ended up to actual. If you would like it presented in a different format, or you'd like additional information or in graphs and pictures, whatever best serves you, the information that you'd like, we will make sure we address that going forward. But tonight, I've just handed out something that was where you ended and what was the actual results.
And that would be the normal way that you do it?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. But as I mentioned, we do tailor it to how you'd like it.
Any further comments or questions for Mr. Franz?
My only concern was the lack of attendance at the annual meeting. There's a lot of people that attend that every year that aren't normally at our twice a month meetings, and this is all really helpful, but it's just really important to me that we have that representation at that annual meeting so that the citizens that attend that,
Absolutely.
if they have any questions or issues that they want to address, that, you know, you're available for that.
Absolutely. And it was my intention to be here. And I apologize that I wasn't. We attempted to spread me out to a couple different communities. I don't think that's the best approach, and we will make sure we will have a representative here moving forward. If there are citizen questions, anything that you can't field, you can use me as a resource along with John Knable at the firm who's the partner on this engagement.
Supervisor Durr, he was like 2 minutes out from pulling in, just so you know. He was here. He was just about here
2 or
before I
20.
called him out.
2 or 20, doesn't matter.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, guys.
On to 7, new business, discussion and possible action on the following: purchase of replacement windows in the town hall. Supervisor Wolf.
Yes, before you tonight, you have 3 different proposals that I gathered from 2 different companies. One is to replace the windows the way they look now. The other is to put 1 picture window above with 2 awnings. Or the other one is and the other one is 1 picture window above with 1 slider below it. So it's 2, 1 the same way it is now and 2 other different. The material used is going to be a composite instead of the vinyl. I was told by both the companies that it's a stronger material for a commercial building and it'll hold up much better. The prices ranged from $7,800 to $11,000. Like I said, the material is pretty comparable. So the $7,800 one is a solid material instead of a honeycomb material, which I have found out through some research that would be more energy efficient. They're all double glazed windows. They'll be white on white, white inside, white outside. Everything will be whatever isn't a window part that they have to frame around will be covered with aluminum. So there'll be no maintenance at all. So I would recommend my number 1 on my proposal.
Is that a motion?
Pardon me?
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
I get a couple of, I guess, questions, not in any particular order. And I do appreciate the work and effort you put into this. I didn't know that this was a consideration until I saw it on the agenda. I guess I've got 3 questions. The scope of this includes of this entire building? Is it all of the?
No, it is not.
windows
It's
or-
just the 3 windows in the meeting room. A number of them have lost the seal
Sure.
on the glass. So we're just trying to make it more energy efficient.
Okay, and part of it, and those seals lost on those, and you maybe done the research with those vinyl windows, is it virtually impossible to do glass replacement? Is that a correct
Yeah, on the
statement
vinyl
right
windows,
now?
you cannot do a glass.
So we
replacement.
can't do that.
No.
One of the, just food for thought, I think those windows were put in at the same time that the ones might have been in the front or the fire department. I don't know if you looked at that. I think some of those may be the same windows.
I
Same
know they're
source.
probably the same ones as the office because they look similar quality, or they look like the same product to me.
Sure.
So I would say they replaced these, or they replaced those when they put these in, or when they did the firehouse.
Right. I think they're probably from the same source. Do we know whether there are any records, whether there's any kind of guarantee on those at all or not, or anything, or probably not on the glass or the seals, or we just don't know?
I don't know myself,
Okay.
and I don't know if there was any records of who did it, so.
Well, I guess the other question that I'd have, so the reason for doing that is because of the loss of the glass seals. Is that the primary thing that's
Correct.
driving this? And I guess the only question that I would have is it your sense that it's imperative that we do it now as opposed to a capital project for next year? And if it is, do we have identified a source of where the funds would come from?
The amount can be taken out of our building maintenance and expenses from DPW for the 3 windows here that have been
Here it's going to come out of the DPW budget, I have even more concern. Since that's kind of one of the things I oversee. But when I think back to our budget workshops and how we allocated for DPW and maintenance and repair, we had discussions about more trucks and more repairs potential. And if I'm not mistaken, we cut that budget. So if our plan right now is to take that out of DPW maintenance and repair, I really want to carefully look at that before I'd support that tonight. I also looked on the capital budget because I would have thought that that's where it would have been. And as we discussed, it's not. So I think that's something that we should consider in the capital budget.
Gentlemen, this was on the initial capital budget that we started when we started the workshops, and you took it off and said it should go into operating expenses. So if we want to put it back, that's fine. It's just that we were moving forward on your decision and capital project workshop.
Okay.
Is DPW the right place to take it from, or should it be taken from buildings and clerk's office?
From
Buildings and grounds?
I guess if we're inclined to do it, and I'm not real excited about either one, I think this is and maybe we did have the discussion and say, not do it. My memory isn't that great, but I'm certainly not going to say that didn't happen. I mean, if we're really going to do this, I almost think we'd be better off to, well, let me back up for a minute, in the capital budget for this year. And I think we need to look at that. I think, and I don't remember it, but in addition to the road stuff, DBW, I think we were talking about, were we buying a backhoe and some things like that, or some pieces of equipment. So there's things there. I'm not real comfortable with taking this out of an operating budget. It's not a huge amount of money, and regardless of which operating budget is, if we really want to do it, I think we need to do it this year. I would almost favor doing a budget amendment and taking it out of capital funds. I'm not necessarily suggesting that, but I guess I would prefer, if there's not urgency to it, and it's not unappreciative of the effort you put into it, but I guess I would prefer to do this as a capital project for next year.
Is there any advantage to adding more windows to the proposal? Or are these just the main ones that are an issue and the others are okay?
These are the main ones that have the issues at this time.
We've got a first and a second. Is there any further questions? Comments?
I think we need to figure out where it out from.
Well, is somebody inclined to table this until the next board?
I'll change my motion. I'll table it till the next board meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Table to the next regular meeting of the board. On to B, salt purchase for the 2016.
In the past and what we've used and what we should be using based upon our new policies and procedures. And I don't think any of us can quite fully guess what the weather's going to be, but we have changed our salt usage quite a bit. That number, along with what we have left in our reserves, would be about 1,000 ton. So I would recommend that we ask the county to reserve on our behalf 1,000 ton, again, subject to the true pricing that will come through probably within the next 4 to 5 weeks.
Is that a recommendation or a motion?
I will make that motion.
And is there a second?
I'll second if I can ask a question.
Absolutely.
You obviously spent a lot of time and effort and have a lot of expertise in this area. Do we have any reason to believe that we would be able to buy salt for next year from some other source at a better price? Is there any reason to expect that we could do better than this based on your knowledge and experience?
No, the only thing that's changed though, and keep in mind, is in the last year, we bought it directly from the state contract, which means we contracted directly with Compass Minerals to have it directed to our depot. However, the county has changed their policy and said you can't do that anymore because it became more of an accounting issue with each municipality kind of tracking things on their own, over budgeting as to how much they wanted. And the policy from the county really was, if you ordered it, was yours, we would store it for you. But when we had a couple of severe winters where everybody ran out, and then the following year, everybody ordered more than they should, it created a lot of accounting difficulties for them at the county level. So with us potentially changing and not quite knowing exactly where our salt will go, and in the process that we're looking at building our own salt shed, we don't know whether or not that'll be completed in time. And I wouldn't be comfortable in ordering it directly from the state and committing to that and not knowing where it could go.
I think we need to come to some kind of decision about what we're going to do with the salt that's out at Wolf. Another question I have is, they talked, and I think it's a great policy that we don't have to take it all, but I can understand their need for us to be as accurate as possible. But can we take more? Right now, we have about 200 ton at Wolf, and we're not sure what the disposition of that is going to be. If we're not going to take possession of that salt, then I would want something slightly more than 1,000 tons. We're going to take possession of that. I think your number is probably just right. If we can get more than what we reserve right now, then I'm not as concerned about it.
You can. What he's asking for, what he's asking from all the municipalities is a true reflection of what you've used in the last 5 years.
As long as we don't have to take all of it, would you be more
But-
comfortable, Supervisor Durrett, at
The-
1,200 tons?
The answer to the question of what we used versus what we're gonna need to order are two different answers.
But he's asking for one. He's not asking what you anticipate to use. He wants to know your average over the last 5 years. That's where the difficulties come in the past, is everybody says, well, I think it's going to be a severe winter, therefore I'm going to double the amount that I've ordered. And he's had some municipalities that didn't touch any of it that they ordered for.
Aside from weather, taking that out of the equation, in my opinion, I wanna go into the winter with 1,700 tons. And I'll roll the dice on the weather. I think that puts us right where we need to be. If we gotta go buy some on a spot market, I think it wouldn't be that much. I mean, if we get killed like we did a couple of years ago, I think it was reasonable. Even if I get killed on a spot market after that point, I've at least, in my mind, made a reasonable expectation of what we're gonna use. So that's my answer to the question of what are we gonna use? What do we want on hand going into next season? My answer to that is 1,700 ton.
Which is great. What the county's asking from us is the average over the last 5 years. So you can say 1,700, I can say 1,000. We need to do the math. And if we want to order what the average is, then that's what we need to do. Otherwise, we have to go elsewhere.
The average less what we have on hand.
Correct.
Okay, so it sounds like you're
Isn't
more
that the
comfortable.
real number that the county's after?
Yes.
It sounds like you're more comfortable at 1,200 tons.
Tell me what we're gonna do with the salted wolf. I mean, that's the difference.
He said he'd buy it if we don't use it, so I don't think that's that big of a problem. If we have to go get it, we'll go get it.
Okay? That doesn't answer my question.
But the problem is, where do you put it? If we don't use Wolf, you got to put it somewhere. If you use Wolf, then it's fine to keep it there. We haven't made that decision yet.
We haven't.
From my perspective, I'd say at this point, 1,200 tons, and then that alleviates the concern of wolf. If we end up with a couple extra 100 tons, we have.
Well, you got a
It
motion and
doesn't
a
have a
second.
shelf life.
You got a motion and a second on 1,000.
Would you want to amend your motion, or are you sticking at 1,000?
No, I think 1,000 is accurate.
Okay. Well, we've got a motion and a second then. All in favor? Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries. On to C, resolution bond schedule. Clerk Nicholas.
We're getting ready for our joint municipal court, getting things ready. We've had Captain Lucero go through the bond schedule. We've gone through the ordinances to make sure that we have the bonds in within our ordinance structure. And Attorney Macy had made a couple suggestions or some changes, and that's why you're working off of a yellow copy. First of all, our ordinance or our resolution actually needed to be an ordinance and not a resolution. And the last portion, the 10-1-1 state traffic laws, he had a little bit of different verbiage than just stating the codes themselves.
Any questions?
So is the only thing that's changing that's in red and or crossed out?
From the original, yes. It's the only difference.
My only comment, and I don't know if this matters, but recently the governor changed possession of a switchblade knife, that it now is no longer illegal, but yet we show it as an offense. I don't know if that makes any difference because state law would override it.
What line are you on?
11-1-1, about a third down.
Yep.
I just happen to know that. No.
It's according to the statute, so if you change the statute.
That's why I said I don't want to make a big deal about it, but it is no longer an offense.
Are we able to simply line item that out?
If you'd like.
I believe there has to be something that says state law overrides this if there's disagreements, because laws do change.
That's what we're referring to as the statute.
And that was recent, that was within the last 2 months.
Can we simply line it out subject to confirmation by Attorney Macy and we could go with that?
I'm okay with it in, provided that that notation is made record that that is no longer an issue.
Yeah, the only thing I guess, clean it up. I'm all for cleaning it up if we can simply ask him to confirm that.
Is there a motion then to approve the bond schedule?
I'll make a motion with that comment.
And a second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to D, license fees. Madam Clerk.
All right, you're working off of the yellow copy again. We changed our operators fees. The state during classes have told us, the State Department of Revenue had told us that we needed to be checking on our operator's license on a yearly basis. We want to change the just that fee for license operator's license. The fireworks display permit fee, which we were going to change with the notation of because we have to send that to the attorney to review every year. His costs come up to more than what the bond is. I mean, the fee is. So we wanted to add something to that. He stated that we could, if we put that in and made a specific notation, then anytime we wanted to have professional fees paid for, we would have to put that in every line item. So he said that would be taken care of in our codification that we're doing. So he suggested we take that out. So that's what this one's about.
Motion to approve the license fees ordinance.
I'll make the motion.
And a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. E, direct the clerk to publish the 2016 road crack filling, slag, and paving work bid notices. I would want to make one clarification that we make sure that we put in bid and/or contract documents that we have the right to choose which of the roads listed we're going to do. There was some discussion about that last year.
Right.
Okay.
Guess I have a question. Maybe somebody appreciate this document. Maybe somebody can help explain. We've got in the left-hand column 2016 paving approved in the capital plan, and I didn't compare this against that, but the 5 roads listed there, I guess looking somebody to verify, in fact, that's what we approved in
That's correct.
the capital. It's actually a capital budget. In addition to being capital plans, capital budget. And then I guess my question is, we've got additional suggested paving, and we've had some roads added and some roads deleted. I guess those are, and I have some specific questions, but those are roads that were not part of our capital plan or capital budget. If in fact that is true, what the rationale is for each one of those for being on the list at this point in time. And then I guess I would like to know, is there a cost estimate for those and where we're anticipating that those funds would come from. So that's a handful of questions. I'm actually glad to see, but I see Green Lane was on there, and apparently now that's crossed off, and MacArthur as well. I think I understand and make sense of that, but I'd like to know why we're adding Broadway Service Road, Getz, and I really want to know about what we're proposing to do. I know there was even question about Getz Drive, whether that is private or public, but can somebody help me out why this kind of seems to be a moving target?
All right, the reason that we're going to repave those two, or we're suggesting to repave them.
Which
rather,
two, please?
Broadway and Getz. Those are in bad shape, obviously. Getz regarding private road or public road, we've pretty much determined that that is a public road and needs to be brought up to town standards. We do have some estimates on it. I don't have them at my fingertips, so I can't tell you what that is. Part of it is going to be paid by a resident, and then we'll accept the road. And the part that's already known to be a town road is going to be paid by the town.
I guess when you say part of it, I mean, I know we went through that thing earlier this year with regard to the snow plowing. Do we have a drawing or some information as to what that determination is what's public and private or
Yes.
whatever? I guess they sort of kind of like to see that. So why did, I guess back to the other thing, why are these now being put on the list when they weren't part of the planning that we did in the budget we did 6 months ago? And I don't mean to be argumentative about that, but why wasn't that in our
I met with the
rangefinder?
DPW, and the answer to your first question is the first 5 roads are in fact match the capital plan, capital budget. So I met with the DPW for additional input or changes that they might have. And initially, they came and discussed with me about the Broadway Service Road, Getz, Green Lane, and MacArthur. And through further discussion, it was concluded that I agreed that I would bring these additional roads to the board because conditions have changed, as conditions do. Even though the DPW suggested to consider Green Lane and MacArthur, my concern, and through discussion with them, they agreed that to do Green Lane and MacArthur ahead of the anticipated bypass construction probably was not a wise expenditure of funds. I left them on there and struck them out so that we could have some discussion about it. I wanted to make sure that I delivered the full information to the board. And then there was also consideration for Town Line Road. That would be the east-west Town Line Road, south of the town here, for a section that is deteriorating quickly from Deerfield Circle, 300 feet west. It's a major, one of the more heavily traveled road in the town that we're responsible for. And Jerry thought that that should get some consideration for this year. And then also Beheim from Coppersmith west to the end of Beheim is deteriorating quickly. So what I agreed to do, because I told him that if we would do any of those roads, either through a swap with something that we have or in consideration of additional, that it would require a motion and an approval by the board. So that's why those things are in that left-hand column. The first 5 are in the capital plan, and the next 4, 5, 6 were recommendations of the DPW, and then under further consideration, essentially removing Green Lane and MacArthur. So that's what that is. And then the next column is pretty self-explanatory, crack filling and then slag. Now, certainly on the slag column, there will not likely be enough money in the operations
all of them.
Do you know, were they for next year? or-
I would say if they weren't for 17, they were for 18 for sure,
Okay.
because they've been there since I've been discussing it with Jerry.
I guess two other comments real quickly, or one of which would be, understand Chairman Merrick, what you said about to be able to pick and choose. I'm a little bit concerned about how the bid for this gets put out. Are we going to ask contractors to give an individual price?
It wouldn't concern me. If I was the bidder, it wouldn't concern me.
And that is how we've generally bid it in the last several years.
Would we give them the option to do a combination bid and give us a better price? That's often done as a public bidding procedure rather than just piecemealing.
Well, I think all offers are considered, but I don't see any harm in adding a few additional roads. I don't think anybody's going to have an issue in bidding that out. And I think time is more important than cleaning this up to be, 100% certain of what we're putting out there. We're already first part of May. If we wait any longer, as we've done in the past, you run the risk of not getting enough qualified bidders or getting it done in time.
I think
I'd like to see it out now.
Well, I agree completely with that. I mean, timing, we're not going to wait on this.
I think your
Glad it's here.
suggestion of a combination bid of, here, how much if we piecemeal it and how much for the whole list, I don't have a problem with that. Perhaps they would discount it.
I don't know if a sentence or a disclaimer can be put in there to, add, combine, if you feel there's a benefit or a discount.
Town reserves the right to eliminate roads.
Right.
One last comment that I would just have on the list for slag there. The part that's highlighted in blue that identifies roads which are crack-filled last year. Indeed, slag Hinsdale Road was not crack-filled last year, so that ought to be corrected.
Is there a motion? And the motion would be to move forward bidding each road and each project individually, as well as a combination of all of the projects.
Also move.
In a second,
I'll second.
further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. On to F, Direct the engineer to write the road bid for the 2016 paving projects. And again, I would suggest that that bid include language that says that the town reserves the right to eliminate or take some of those roads off the project.
I'll make that motion.
In a second,
I'll second.
further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to G. Appointments. 5 members for the Board of Appeals. The Code of Ordinance 2-5-2 sub A. Appointments are made by the chairman and confirmed by the board for 3-year terms. The appointments that I'd like to make, and if there's no objection, we'll take them all together, will be Mary Graves for the chairman, chairperson, if you so choose, Catherine Piala, Paul Skolovich, Robert Stigler, and Richard Zimmer. Is there a motion?
Are they all current members of the board?
Indeed.
I will so move.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 2, member for the Fire Commission, Code of Ordinance 2-5-6- sub A. Appointment is made by the board for a 5-year term, and I am nominating Supervisor Durr to the Fire Commission, if you would so accept.
I would.
Congratulations. Nope. Not in that one.
It's an appointment by the board.
Made by, my apologies. And is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
And on to 3, Weed Commissioner, Code of Ordinance 2-4-11. Appointment is made by the chairman and confirmed by the board for a 1-year term. And that would be for the current Weed Commissioner, Matt Gans. I would make the motion to reappoint Matt Gans. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to 4, citizen member for the Plan Commission, Code of Ordinance 2-5-3 sub B, appointed by the town chairman for a 3-year term. And I am appointing Renee Ramirez. She had been before a previous board a number of years ago. And at that time, our attorney did not let us know that those appointments were not approved by the board and that they were strictly chairman appointments. Renee Ramirez is the founder and executive director of the Waukesha County Community Dental Clinic, a nonprofit clinic serving low-income families. She graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 1983 with a BA in International Relations and Economics. Has more than 25 years' experience in nonprofit management, is recognized for her leadership in Waukesha County as a mentor for women, advocate for public education, as well for her expertise and success in fundraising. She's received the Rotary International's Paul Harris Award in 2006, was named the UW Badger of the Year for Waukesha County in 2007, received the Key to the City from the City of Waukesha in December of 2012, and has been honored as Women of Distinction in 2013. And I think she's going to be a welcome addition to the Plan Commission. Additionally, on number 5, citizen member of the Plan Commission. This is for a 1-year term, and I'll be reappointing Ken Miller, who's been serving on the Plan Commission for the last year. Number 6 should not be on there. That was done last year. And number 7, appointments to the multi-jurisdictional court. There's 2 appointments. Code of Ordinance is 2-7-10, appointed by the town board for a 2-year term. And I would like to appoint Clerk Nicholas as well as Supervisor Wolf. And I will make that a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstain.
Aye.
On to 8, current business, discussion and possible action on the following. The fire department taker. This is on here because at the last regular meeting, we had requested, we didn't request, we couldn't request because of the way that it was agendized, but would like some additional information, specifically from my perspective, a looser bid that would allow more inclusive bidding, whether or not our current taker can be refurbished, and perhaps a do nothing alternative. What would the cost of the town, and specifically town taxpayers and rates, be if we did not do anything with that, and the costs there involved? Supervisor Durr, you may have had some other concerns.
Well, I think that I'd like to see, I think I could find my way to support a tanker. But I'd like to see some other comparisons, perhaps some used options, perhaps some rehab options for current tankers that we have. If that's not possible, I understand that, but I'd like to get that in writing from, people who do that for a business, or that it's cost prohibitive. Just things like that, just other options so that I can make sure that we're making the right decision.
Fair enough. I'm not certain, do we need to put that into a motion to?
No, we just wanted to give them some direction.
Chief, is that clear enough? Makes sense?
Yep.
Thank you. On to B, well monitoring. Supervisor Fisher, you do have some additional information, I believe, from Dr. Chirkauer, as well as perhaps the DNR and the interpretation of their new rule of uncapping wells. Regarding a comment that was made earlier and disclosing and letting out the top secret information of well levels, that information would have been released during discovery and was not a secret by any means, and wasn't intended to be a secret. Supervisor Fisher?
Yeah, backing up half a step, and I'm not sure whether all of you had a chance to see this in email communication today, and certainly this wasn't in the packet because it's something that unfolded today. Just backing up half a step, some of you might remember last fall, it was called to our attention actually through Guthrie, has been doing the static well monitoring for the past couple of years, that DNR regulations that went into effect October 1st of 2014 required testing of the well water every time the well was entered for checking for basically for bacteria, for coliform bacteria. And there was some discussion at the table here as to the cost that would entail and the potential liability exposure to the town if we entered wells, if they might have even been contaminated before the initial test or whatever, notwithstanding the worthiness and the worthwhile purpose of doing the testing. So we tried to get clarification on that. You might remember Attorney Basie even told us that Town of Vernon and other people had been involved in that string of conversations. So last fall, we finally got a determination from a lady by the name of, I believe it's Liesa, it might be Liesa, but L-I-E-S-A, Lehman, L-E-H-M-A-N-N, from the DNR, who basically said that their interpretation of their rule is that measuring static water level in a well is measuring a feature of the well. So the code provisions that went into effect in October of 2014 were applicable, and therefore it would be necessary to basically water test each time a well was entered for purposes. Quite out of the blue, we got an email communication today and I think I just like to read it into the record. It's not very lengthy, but this at 9:52 a.m. this morning says, I'm writing to correct the interpretation I provided in my message below, and that's referencing December 10th of last year. After further review of NR 812, I found that the term, quote, feature, unquote, is specifically defined in the code, and the definition refers to the well's construction or pump installation and does not refer to the water level inside a well. So my previous interpretation about sampling requirements after measuring static water level was incorrect interpretation. The correct interpretation is that NR 812.27 or 812.41 parens 3 Wisconsin Administrative Code require well water sampling and analysis when a potable well is entered for measuring or diagnosing any feature or problem of the well construction or pump installation. Measuring static water level in a well is not interpreted as measuring or diagnosing a feature of the well construction or pump installation. Therefore, entering a well to measure static water level does not require water sampling and analysis. I have reviewed this interpretation with our program attorney to confirm that it is accurate. I apologize for the previous misinformation. Please contact me if any questions. So cut to the chase. She's done an absolute about 180 to that which was said last December. So we're back to where we started. You do have a copy of the report that Dr. Schirkauer provided, and I might add, we have publicly displayed here the history of water levels in those some 24 wells we've been sampling since 2008. So there's no new or revolutionary or revelationary information about that. My recommendation, if you looked at what Dr. Schirkauer said, if you are going to sample, and I think Supervisor Durr picked up on that at last meeting, we need to be rhythmic and consistent about when we do it. And he sort of suggested one thing is if you do it twice annually, do it in the spring and do it in the fall. I think he said May and may have said October. My recommendation at this point in time is for discussion. I don't know whether they need to take formal action or not, but I think we should take another round of sampling here immediately within the month of May. Those are costing us, I think, Kathy, about $1,000 a round, roughly, assuming Guthrie and Fry is willing to continue doing that. This communication was also copied to Lynn Fry, so she has the same information. So we're back to where we were at. I think we may want to continue the dialogue with Dr. Schirkauer to see if he would recommend more or less wells or different locations, but I think it would be prudent to proceed with that forthwith. The only other comment that I would make is he was constructively critical of the accuracy with which that is being done. And if we're about to do that, I think that reminder needs to go forth to Guthrie and Fry. So questions, comments, that's new news as of this morning.
I think moving forward, not a bad, it's a great idea for the well monitoring. However, with the city's decision coming up on us within a month or a month and a half, I would just soon put off our next testing until after we get a reading from what the Great Lakes Commission is going to do with regards to the diversion application.
I appreciate that. Again, I would go ahead and spend $1,000 and do it. I mean, that hopefully is coming down the line soon. Hopefully that's good news for the town of Waukesha. I guess I would prefer to spend $1,000 and do the May thing and then assess where we're at. So I appreciate your point of view.
Is that a motion?
I'll put that into a form of a motion. Yes, indeed, that we proceed and do that in the month of May.
I'll second it. Any further discussion or questions for Supervisor Fisher?
No, I totally agree too. I think we need to do it as soon as possible, and then depending on what happens with the water, then decide if we're going to continue with it or not.
Well, if in fact the Great Lakes application diversion is approved, why would we need to do any further well monitoring?
Just to get the base started again, just in case we need it. Like, I agree, $1,000 for some insurance, I think is well worth it.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, a lot can happen between them. If we would get the diversion or not, I would be more comfortable in having it. I don't honestly know if the data that we have is worth anything. If it's brought up in a court of law, there's a lot of holes that are in it. But to have a few more certainly wouldn't hurt. I would support it. And I thought we still had a policy in place, and the only reason it stopped is because of this new direction that said you could contaminate wells, so we suspended it.
I think that's accurate. You're probably correct. You are the water czar, so I don't know that we need to take any action on it. I disavow that title completely.
I think we can move on.
Well, you have a motion and a second on the table.
Well, if it's okay to withdraw, then I think it'd be appropriate to withdraw. And there's no need to vote on something that we've already put in place as a policy.
I don't have an issue with there being a motion. I would say, if we got it, let's go ahead and vote.
But we don't need to vote if it's already a policy. Why would we put anything else out there?
In case we're
Then
not
gonna
sure.
bring it. Then we're gonna bring it back.
Well, you have to do
each time.
something with the motion and the second.
Okay, then we're gonna have to bring it back each time we want to go and get a well monitoring report.
Well, unless the motion was amended to say that we will restart the well monitoring program that was temporarily suspended.
Friendly amendment?
Yes.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to 9, accounts payable. $2,864 for the Rupert Milky bill. Is there a motion?
Move to pay that amount.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
And a motion for $54,892.93.
I'll move to pay that amount.
In a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to 10, announce closed session. You are hereby notified that the town board of the town of Waukesha will convene in May upon motion duly made and seconded and acted upon by roll call vote as required under Wisconsin Stats 1985 sub 1 sub C, go into closed session. During the course of the meeting, town board members may attend the closed session. The purpose of the closed session will be as follows. Purpose of the meeting is to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility as authorized under section 1985 sub 1 sub C, specifically to discuss engineering and planning services. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
And a second. And a roll call vote, Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Beer?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Chairman Merrick?
Aye.
Supervisor Wagner?
Aye.
Supervisor Wolf?
Aye.
We are in closed session.
I wasn't sure.
All right, we are back in open session. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.